Deep in the Rocky Mountains, a seasoned ranger hears something strange echoing through the mist. It's not a growl, it's a cry. When he finds a grizzly cub caught in an illegal steel trap, he knows two things: the cub won't last much longer, and its mother could be near. But what the ranger does next, and how the grizzly responds, will leave even the toughest hearts shaken. This is a real story of instinct, sacrifice, and a moment between man and bear that no one will ever forget. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications so we can keep sharing stories of courage and compassion from the wild. The fog was thick that morning, the kind that turned pine trees into ghosts. Eli Turner, a veteran ranger with 17 years in the Rockies, was making his final sweep before heading back to base. His boots were soaked, and the radio on his shoulder kept losing signal. He was almost ready to call it when he heard it, not a roar, not a snarl, a cry. Sharp, high-pitched, and coming from somewhere deep in the brush. He froze. Animal? Maybe. Injured? Definitely. He moved toward it, slipping through damp undergrowth. His instincts screamed, predator. But something about the sound felt smaller, helpless. Then he saw it. A grizzly cub, alone, barely the size of a large dog. Its hind leg was clamped in a rusted steel trap. The cub's fur was dirty and matted. Blood had dried around the injury. Its eyes locked onto Eli with a mix of pain and terror. Eli crouched, heart pounding. "Hey there, little one," he said softly. "You're okay now. I got you." The cub growled weakly but didn't move. Eli set down his backpack, pulling out a pry bar and a roll of gauze. He worked quickly, hands steady but heart racing. He knew time was short, and he knew what might be coming. The trap gave a metallic groan as he began to pry it open. Then, a snap in the woods. Eli froze. Another snap. Closer. He looked up, scanning the fog. His breath caught. He wasn't alone. Somewhere out there, the mother was coming. He could still run. Leave now. Save himself. But instead, Eli turned back to the cub. "I'm not leaving you," he whispered. "Even if it kills me." The trap snapped open with a harsh metallic crack. Eli immediately pulled the cub's leg free, cradling it gently in his gloved hands. The cub whimpered, barely conscious but breathing. He started wrapping the wound, fast, but careful. And then, a deep, low growl echoed through the trees. Eli froze. The fog parted slightly, just enough for him to see her. The mother. She stepped from the shadows like a storm made of muscle and fur. Easily 350 pounds, towering above the grass. Her eyes locked straight onto him. Eli had faced bears before. Most ran off when they sensed humans. But not this one. This was a mother who thought her cub was being taken. He slowly raised both hands, heart hammering. "I'm not your enemy," he said, his voice barely a whisper. She took a step forward, another. The cub stirred weakly, chuffing. Eli didn't move. He couldn't run. If he did, he'd die. So he stayed. Right beside the cub. The mother grizzly let out a deep, guttural huff. But she didn't charge. She stopped just feet away. Her ears flattened, lips twitching in warning, muscles coiled. Eli lowered one hand and pointed slowly to the trap on the ground, now twisted and open. "I freed your baby," he said. "I didn't hurt him." The bear looked down at the cub, then back at Eli. A moment passed, then another, and then she sat down. Not submissively. Not out of exhaustion. but as if she understood. As if some ancient instinct told her, this one didn't come to kill. He came to help. Eli let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Carefully, he stepped back a few feet, giving her space. She moved forward, sniffed her cub, nudged him gently, then turned her head and looked at Eli once more, not with rage, but with something else. Recognition. She stood again, placed one massive paw beside her cub, and began nudging him upright. Eli watched in awe as the cub struggled to stand, then leaned against her. Together, slowly, they turned and walked back into the forest. But just before they vanished into the fog, the mother looked back for just a moment. And then they were gone. 3 days had passed. Eli was back on regular patrol, though his mind wasn't. The cub's face haunted him, the trust in those eyes. And the mother, how she hadn't attacked. How she had looked back. No one at the ranger station believed the story. "You were lucky," one rookie ranger told him. "Next time, stay out of it." But Eli knew better. That hadn't been luck. That had been a choice. And maybe something more. It started with tracks. He was hiking a remote trail 2 valleys over when he spotted them. Massive paw prints pressed into soft mud beside the ridge, too fresh to ignore, and headed in the same direction he was going. At first, he brushed it off. Coincidence. The forest was full of bears this time of year. Then came the second sign. A broken pine branch near his camp, 7 feet off the ground. Then claw marks on a tree trunk. Fresh ones. Then the night sounds. Twice, while sitting by the fire, he heard low grunts just beyond the tree lean. But no charge. No signs of aggression. Just presence. And then, early one morning, as mist curled across the valley, he saw her. The same mother bear. Standing still on a ridge across from his lookout. Just watching. Her cub, now limping, but walking, was with her. Eli stood slowly, heart thudding in his chest. She didn't move. Didn't growl. She just held his gaze. A long, heavy moment. And then she turned. Not away. Downhill. Toward his cabin. Eli didn't understand. Why come back? Why now? He followed cautiously, quietly. They kept their distance but never vanished, always just close enough to see. It wasn't until she led him to the edge of a dry ravine that he understood. At the bottom, another bear cub. Dead. Smaller. Different coat color. Maybe from another mother. Poached. A clean shot to the head. Fresh. Eli's stomach turned. This wasn't random. She had shown him. She wanted him to see, wanted him to know. This is what's out here. He knelt beside the cub's body, silent. Above him, the mother and her injured cub stood on the ridge, watching. She wasn't just saving her own. She was warning him. Eli filed the report about the dead cub first thing the next morning. Possible poaching activity. North Rim Dry Ravine. .30 caliber round. Clean kill. The ranger chief skimmed it, barely blinking. Probably a stray hunter. Happens more than we'd like. Eli pressed. There were no tags, no permits. This wasn't a mistake. This was illegal. The chief sighed. We're stretched thin. We'll get someone out there when we can. Eli stared. That bear showed me the body. She knew. Bears don't show things, Turner. They wander. Eli left the office, furious. Something was wrong in that forest. He knew it. And now the bear did too. That night, he returned to the ridge. He didn't expect to see her again, but she was there. Same spot. She didn't approach, just stood in the shadows, cub by her side. He didn't speak, just stood still, letting the moment speak for itself. That was the night he made the decision. If no one else would act, he would. For the next week, Eli camped deeper into the valley than he ever had before. Set trail cams. Marked broken branches. Mapped patterns. And the bear followed him. Not close, never threatening, but always present. Once, at dusk, he caught her lying beside her cub on a hill above his tent, like a sentinel. He was beginning to understand. This bear had no reason to trust humans. But for some reason, she trusted him. Then came the worst day. Eli returned to one of his cams and found it smashed, lens cracked, memory card missing. Poachers. Too close for coincidence. He found tire tracks near the south trail, off-grid, unregistered. Then footprints. And a glint of metal half buried in the dirt. A baited trap. Still open. Still waiting. He looked around. His heart dropped. He hadn't seen the cub that day, and neither had the mother. She was pacing the ridge above the trail, grunting low, ears flat. Something was wrong. Eli didn't think. He ran. He scoured the nearby brush, the ravines, the thickets. Nothing. Then, a cry, not far. Same kind of cry as the first time. He sprinted toward it and found the cub. Caught again. Bleeding. Shaking. But this time, two human figures stood nearby. Rifles slung. Not hunters, poachers. They hadn't seen him yet. He ducked low behind a log, heart hammering. He had no backup. No time. And somewhere above him, a furious grizzly mother was closing in fast. He had seconds to choose, act now and risk everything, or do nothing and lose the trust he'd built, forever. Eli gripped the bear spray in one hand, heart thudding like a war drum. The poachers were distracted. One was kneeling near the trapped cub, laughing as it squirmed. The other scanned the tree lean, finger twitching near the trigger. He didn't have time to wait for backup. And he didn't have time to think. He moved fast. Burst from the brush, shouting, "Hey!" Both men spun, startled. The one standing aimed instinctively. Eli didn't hesitate. He fired the spray. A blinding orange cloud hit the poacher's face. He screamed, stumbled, dropped the gun. The other tried to run, but Eli tackled him into the dirt. A fist. A knee. Training and fury took over. Seconds later, one man was down, the other crawling blindly. Eli didn't stop. He ran to the cub, careful not to trigger the trap, and began forcing it open, his hands shaking, blood on the metal. The cub whimpered. "You're okay," Eli whispered. "I've got you." Snap. The trap sprang open. But before he could react, a new sound cut through the chaos. A roar, deep, close. He looked up. And there she was, the mother, charging from the trees like thunder. Eli froze. But she didn't go for him. She barreled past, straight at the poachers. One tried to crawl away. Too late. She rose up, towering, her roar shaking the trees. The men screamed. But she didn't strike. She stood over them, growling, her body between them and her cub. It was enough. They ran. Tripped. Stumbled. Disappeared into the woods. Eli sat back, panting. The cub hobbled to his mother, trembling. She licked his head, then looked at Eli. They locked eyes, not with fear, but with something closer to respect. He'd fought for her cub, and she had protected him in return. No ranger manual could prepare you for that. Authorities arrived hours later. Both poachers were arrested. Illegal traps were seized. The cub was treated, stabilized. He'd recover. But something deeper had happened out there, something no camera caught. A bond that was never supposed to exist. The story hit the regional news within days. Ranger intervenes to save Grizzly cub from poachers. May face suspension. The headlines stirred outrage. Some called Eli a hero. Others said he was reckless. The Department of Wildlife and Forest Protection launched an internal investigation. Unauthorized engagement, they said. No backup. No warrant. No report filed in advance. Eli sat in the station office, stripped of his badge for the time being, a formal reprimand being typed just a few feet away. Clara, his supervisor, looked across the desk. You disobeyed protocol. Eli didn't flinch. I saved a life. 2, actually. Clara tapped her pen. You're lucky you didn't get killed. She saved me too, he said quietly. Clara paused. Eli leaned forward, voice firm. That bear, she's not just some animal to monitor. She's part of this forest. She led me to that first body. She showed me what we were ignoring. Clara sighed. We're not trained to form relationships with apex predators, Eli. No. We're trained to protect them. And that's what I did. He was placed on administrative leave until further notice. The next few weeks were quiet. Eli hiked, but not in uniform. He felt cut off, not just from the job but from the very forest he'd sworn to protect. Then one morning, a letter arrived. Not from the department, from a wildlife journalist in Washington state. She'd read the local report. She wanted to do a feature. National coverage. A story on the human-animal bond that saved a family of bears. Eli hesitated. Then he called her. 2 months later, the article went viral. Photos of the rescue, the trap, the wounded cub. And at the center, Eli, muddy, bruised, but unyielding. The department couldn't ignore the public anymore. A week later, his suspension was lifted. But Eli didn't return to his post right away. Instead, he went back to the ridge, just before dawn. And there she was, the mother bear. Standing alone. Calm. Her fur catching the early light. He didn't move. Neither did she. Then she chuffed, turned, and slowly disappeared into the trees. She had come back not to warn, but to say goodbye. For now. Autumn returned to the Rockies. The trees wore gold. The wind carried chill, and the forest felt quieter somehow, as if holding its breath before the snow. Eli was back in uniform now. His name had been cleared. His title restored. But something inside him had changed. He no longer walked the woods as a ranger first. He walked them as a witness. He returned to the same ridge, the place where it all began, where he'd once found a tiny cub crying for help. It had been 5 months. He didn't expect to see them again. But still, he came. With nothing in his hands. Only silence in his steps. The sun broke over the horizon, casting golden light through the trees. Then, movement. On the far edge of the clearing, beside the base of a fire-scarred pine, a small shape moved. Then another. 2 cubs. one limping slightly, still healing. Eli stood still. His breath caught as a larger form emerged behind them. The mother. She didn't approach. She didn't growl. She just watched. For a long time, the forest stood still. And then she chuffed, soft, familiar. The cubs turned and looked at Eli. One took a small step forward. Then another. He crouched slowly, heart thudding, not wanting to frighten them. But they didn't run. They came close. Close enough to see the softness in their eyes. The cub sniffed the air between them, then turned back to its mother. She let out another low huff, then turned. And the three of them disappeared into the woods. No ceremony. No drama. Just wild grace. But before the trees swallowed them completely, she looked back, one last time. And then they were gone. Eli stood there a long time after that. Not waiting. Not searching. Just feeling. He'd once thought he was protecting the wild. But now he understood. Sometimes, the wild protects us too. Months later, a trail cam caught a photo at dawn. A family of 3 bears, walking along a ridgeline. The caption beneath the framed photo in the ranger station read, "Trust isn't given. It's earned." And underneath that, written in Eli's own hand, "Some stories are only told in silence." If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and share it with someone who believes in second chances. In nature, as in life, the smallest acts of courage can leave the biggest marks.